I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerczek, and I've got some special guests today. None more special than Mark, the Director of Editorial and Press Relations for NRA Media. Mark, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Seth. Appreciate it.
And we've got a couple more guests here. We've got President Steve Hornady and Vice President Jason Hornady also joining us at the table. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here.
Do what we're told.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks for making time for the podcast. As our listeners know, the podcast for us is very much second and third fiddle to our daily job. And so when we get a chance to do something like this, it's always fun to sit down, to catch up, to do a deep dive, say, on Quinlan's Corner. We recorded an episode with Mark and Dave Emery about the history of bullets, 250 years worth of America. And today's episode is really a kind of a peek behind a curtain that not everyone gets to see. We have, Mark, who's been in the media space for a very long time, and we have you guys on the manufacturer side. And I want to go through how that relationship works, launching new products and going on events and getting exposure, and how, one side of that needs the other just as bad as that side needs them. And so, Mark, you've been beside Hornady for 40 years now in the media space, and you've seen our company really evolve. What's that been like over 4 decades?
It's actually been a lot of fun to watch. My first Hornady experience came when I was about 15. I didn't know if I could buy these legally or not, so I had my Uncle Mark send a check into Grand Island for like $14 or something like that, because I had a Colt 1860 Army replica, really nice one, still have it. We had gunpowder, we had caps, we had no bullets, and Hornady happened to make 4.51 bullets, and I needed them, and I had no idea how to get them, and so I enlisted a relative, and eventually I got to shoot that gun because of Hornady. And then I went to work at NRA in 1990, but I was already shooting Hornady bullets. I shot a lot of black powder back then. And then went over to the magazine side, American Rifleman, in 1991, and, got an inside look on how the magazine was created. Did a lot of gun testing. I worked for this guy named Pete Dickey, technical editor of American Rifleman, and Steve likes to think he's crusty. Man's got no game compared to Pete Dickey. And so I'd be testing guns every week and shooting Hornady ammunition, and I saw the growth, right? Because initially Hornady was mostly a bullet company. Mm-hmm. But I've been there every step of the way as this company has transitioned. They like to say we're still a small little bullet maker in Nebraska.
Just a small family business trying to get by.
Yeah, but the innovation that's come from this company is remarkable. I was in on all kinds of projects. One of my favorite was 450 Marlin.
Oh yeah,
and that was a project with some guys we were talking about not too long ago, Steve. Bob Bean from Marlin, Tony Eshelman, and it was making the 4570 everything it could be. Sure. Little mini belt on that. I know you don't like belts, Steve. They're typically a bad idea unless you're trying to keep people from blowing themselves up.
Right.
Then belts are good, right?
Well, the right kind of belt is always a good idea.
So 4 decades worth of being, beside a company in the media space. On your side of the table, Steve and Jason, on the manufacturer side, you've also got to share time with Mark over those 40 years. Steve, do you remember your first impression? You saw a young whippersnapper, Mark, for the first time, meeting him. Could you identify, like, okay, he's going to be a long ball hitter in this space?
I have no recollection of that first meeting whatsoever.
Any other meeting that stands out?
Well, actually, we were talking about one time we went back east and met with the guys at NRA or the Riflemen, mm-hmm. and we went to dinner, and we were trying to find where it was, because there's a scene in that movie, A Few Good Men, where Demi Moore and Tom Cruise are in a crab restaurant. And I remember specifically going back there and having dinner in a crab restaurant of some kind, and it was the first time I'd ever done that, where he pounded
with the hammer.
Yeah, and for this tiny little sliver of meat, so that when you get done, you go to McDonald's because you're still hungry. I mean, there's no food in there whatsoever. It's all work.
No, once you know how to do it, Steve, Maryland blue crabs are something that are pretty special, but apparently you weren't tutored properly, and
I have no doubt.
so I got to tell you, I can remember meeting you for the first time. I was terrified because here I am, young editor, familiar with the Hornady brand, and not only did I meet Steve Hornady, but then, of course, at various times you were a board member of the NRA, and so it's in our industry that you actually meet people that have the same name as on the side of the building, and so I got to tell you, I was like, whoa, that's Steve Hornady, wow, and so it's great that you're still that same guy. You were very kind to me the first time I met you.
Well, of course, I have every reason to have been. So back to one of the things when you started talking about the rifleman and everything, and before he ever went there, and back when I was a kid, and one of your jobs there was testing and everything else. When we'd design a new bullet, NRA wouldn't let you advertise it until you'd sent it in and they'd tested it.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And I can remember, doing new things, and Dad putting the bullets together or whatever and sending them in to the NRA to be tested so that we could, do this ad for the next product or a new product, which is, you think about it now, the collaboration between the media and factories, and what you said is that we both need one another. You need things to write about, and we need somebody to write about our things, or to tell the stories, since it all isn't writing anymore. But that collaboration was more arm's length.
Sure.
They were
agnostic.
Well,
let's
they
test
weren't.
and decide.
They weren't agnostic as much as they were royalty, and you manufacturing people. We are the National Rifle Association, and we are the American Riflemen, and you're just little peons down there until we've decided that your product is. But obviously, things have evolved.
Sure.
That doesn't work. It didn't work really then very well either. But part of the difference also was we weren't the player.
Sure.
We were just
different time.
Tiny little bullet company in the middle of Nebraska trying to make our way in the world.
So you think about that era. So I got to talk to Walter J. Howe, who was editor of the Rifleman from the 50s up until about 1966, 67. And he worked very closely with Julian S. Hatcher,
Okay.
Major General Hatcher, who was technical editor of American Rifleman. And Walter was on a first-name basis. The general called him Walter, and he called him General.
Mm.
And that was very much, senior Army ordnance. That culture was there. But by the time I got there, it was a more professional industry partnership kind of culture. We still work for NRA members. That's who we work for now. But we weren't keeping people at arm's length. Are we going to let an unsafe product into the magazine? Are we going to let you run an ad that's not true, Jason? No, we're not going to.
Well, then how do some of these other guys get their ads in there?
So they asked the editors
There's
to
a little
not.
subtle little hint that maybe
No. So they eventually told the editors that they couldn't just deny stuff anymore. So, but that happened while I was here, where I had to check every ad, whether it was for miracle pills or books about the coming Armageddon or bullets.
Really?
Yep.
That's fascinating.
I can
pills were.
Yeah. Viagra hadn't been invented yet, had it? Not going to ask you what. Never mind.
Yeah.
But that means that you had to go through and check out all those knives from the knife company that has always got an ad in about the third or fourth page in with the super special.
So that's not as bad as my favorite knife ad, and that was the Boris Vallejo ad. He's the guy who would paint very buxom women. And there was this Baptist minister that kept writing to me about the naked lady knife that was on the back cover of the magazine. And, eventually there was a more heinous product. Again, I was not allowed to comment on that. And he stopped writing to me about the naked lady knife.
Jason, you probably were at Redfield about the time you would have met Mark.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember when we met the very first time, but we were on a prairie dog trip, and I worked for Redfield, which Redfield at the time was fledgling. And we split a trip with Hornady, and we went to West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Midland was where we went. I don't know if you remember that trip, but
I do.
And the cool part is now, I mean, it was Mark and Nino Bozes and Lee Hoots, rest in peace, and a whole bunch of other guys. And we were trying to remember who all was on that trip. And my dad was there, and the guys from the Nail Ranch were our guides, and we were out there shooting prairie dogs. And I was pedaling like hell to try and keep Redfield afloat and doing everything I could to get these guys to write about it, because Redfield was at the end of its rope at the time, and that's his reference to some of the advertising that we did.
Aggressive advertising.
We were asserting things that we wanted to be true, and that's how we met, and we all just hit it off. And I've been friends with those guys ever since. And that would have been about 1996, I suppose.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's so 1996. That's about the time Hornady would have came out with VMAX bullets. So
94.
Yeah. So we've got a relatively new product, polymer tip. Our first introduction to polymer tipped bullets. Today, I have a pretty good understanding of how we launch new products and the involvement of not just the media space, but also.
I'm curious because I'd like to learn how this is done.
Different podcast. I know how we do things now, but what did it take? What was the interaction like? Because now every person that we work with as far as brands in the manufacturing side and the firearm side and on the media side, we talk daily, text message, phone call, email, etc. In 1994, you're trying to get the VMAX story out there. What did launching a product back then look like?
So I was working for a rep group at the time, and Nosler had been out on the market with ballistic tips.
Right,
They
since
were
late 80s, 1990.
And they were doing a really good job with them,
Mm-hmm.
but they had steadily increased the price. And there'd been lots of discussion about it. And it was I'm going to say it was the wholesale show in 1993. Maybe it was 1994, but I think it was 93. One of those two wholesale shows. And there'd been lots of conversations about it. And I remember getting the price increase and Nosler's our friends. There's nothing wrong with their bullets. I want to make sure that disclaimer.
And they make a good bullet.
They were taking a 20% price increase. And I called my dad and I said, hey, I just got this from my friend who was the Nosler rep, who happened to be Greg Ritz at the time. That's how I met Greg.
What a spider web.
And I called my dad and I said, I just found out that Nosler is going to take a 20% price increase on all their ballistic tip bullets. And he was like, that is fantastic. Because we're launching them at the wholesale show, and at the wholesale show they had a mountain of bullets on a table, and every customer that came in they sent home with I don't remember if it was a 100 count or a 20. It seems to me it was a 25 count box that you were handing them out. And
Don't recall.
And everybody was super excited because all of a sudden Hornady had the VMAX bullet. I don't want to say ballistic tip because that's how you get disowned, but we had something to answer to what was a big momentum mover for them. And I remember watching the sales manager from Nosler. I'd gone around the corner, and I just happened to see him holding a bullet up, and he was on the phone, I assume with probably Bob at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that conversation was, but it was one of those deals where at the time it was like, yes.
So I'm guessing you mentioned, Steve, that outdoor journalists as a whole, and not just NRA Media, but that was kind of, they were royalty. What was the relationship like?
No, they weren't.
No, I know, but the different times.
There were certain ones that thought they were, still do think they are, but most of them are unemployed.
But the relationship
retired.
had to be there.
Yeah, but it had changed by then because factories were working with writers were working with factories, were doing more trips. It used to be back when I got started, there were two events. There was the Remington event that invited a bunch of writers, and Winchester had one too. Mm-hmm. And it was, you were an exalted individual to get to go to those, and they took them hunting, and that was a really big deal. But that doesn't last because other people are trying to get into the marketplace. We're not going to let them own some of this stuff any more than we were going to let Nosler have tipped bullets. The best thing that they had for that whole product line was the name Ballistic Tip, and I wish I still had it. But but you can't own those things, and you've got new up-and-coming writers who want to knock those, I'll say,
Exalted
gene
ones.
of writing off their pedestal, and the dean happens to be dead now, but nice guy, and a whole bunch of them, and they really were super. I mean, they were the celebrities, big time, and you had Elmer Keith and Jack O'Connor and so on and so forth. They were the big dogs.
Yeah.
It wasn't the president of Winchester or the president of Remington. I don't know who those guys were. Never did know.
Yeah, and the young writers weren't getting invited to the Remington thing or the Winchester thing, and so that's how, as smaller companies, especially when I was at this company, it was, hey, we're going on a prairie dog hunt. You want to go? Yeah, sure, let's go. And that's how we kind of worked our way in, was getting to know.
Yeah, and there had to be a certain level of trust, right? So Pete Dickey trusted Steve. So Pete's like, hey, you should go on this, So we had our hierarchy at Rifleman back in the day. Ron Keyser would go to the Remington event, or Bob Honeycutt would go to the Winchester event. And then those smaller crumbs, which were a lot more fun, would trickle down to guys like me.
Yeah.
So, but I think an important thing is trust, from not only the manufacturer side, to trust a writer with what might be a secret. I keep a lot of people's secrets. I know stuff that's going on, but it's not appropriate for me to tell them.
Yeah, you'd lose a lot of credibility for yourself.
Absolutely. But then we also have to trust the manufacturers that what they're telling us is true. And I have a list of liars.
Well, let's
and
not
I maintain
get into
that list of liars.
Hopefully, it's not growing too fast.
No,
Good.
and these things end up sorting themselves out.
Yes, they do.
They do.
The 12th edition Hornady Handbook is here. More loads, more bullets, more data than ever. Covering today's most advanced cartridges, new bullets, and providing deep insights into the loading process. Available in hardback, in the Hornady Reloading app, and on Kindle.
Yep. And so in those, almost 4 decades now in the editorial space, it's not editorial space anymore, Mark. What's the landscape look like? How has that changed for you as the director of media, or director of editorial and press relations for NRA Media? It's Instagram, it's Facebook, it's YouTube, it's magazines, it's digital, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it is. And it used to be that, we had 2 magazines, American Rifleman and American Hunter. And now we're back to that. But we also have other properties like NRA Women and Shooting Sports USA. We had a little consolidation last year. But being an editor on my staff, you're not just writing. You're not just taking photos. You're doing reels. You're doing we're about to start our own podcast because we had NRA TV. We had this whole network, and that kind of went away, and now we're rebuilding. But we've had American Rifleman Television since 2003, and myself, Phil Schreier, some of the other guys. I mean, we had a certain celebrity because we're on every Wednesday night.
Yep.
I mean, we're not as famous as Larry Potterfield, but we're getting there. Because Larry's all over Wednesday night at the range, and so they're doing TV. It helps out when you go to start doing web series, because we do Sunday Gun Day and I Carry and Gun of the Week. So it's not just writing; it's being confident on video. Being able to be interviewed on a podcast. Those are all traits I need in my staff.
Yeah, you've come a lot more dynamic. I think of one of your employees, Jay Grazio, formerly with Shooting Illustrated, now with American Rifleman. Jay obviously writes, edits, takes photos, goes on events, he's got digital articles, does YouTube videos, does social media videos. I mean, he's always hustling, he's always working, and that's pretty common now. I think everybody has to be that hungry, if you will, because I forget who said it. And I'm not capable of original thought, so I certainly didn't come up with this myself. But someone asked, where do you go to get your information about new products and about the industry? And their response was, I don't go get it. It comes and finds me. And they grabbed their cell phone.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, well, wherever you're at and however you're accessing it, it has to find you. And the media space has changed greatly, even in just the last handful of years.
Yeah, so the one thing you have to not discount is a lot of our members, we have a lot of older members, and they love American Rifleman. It's been part of our American Hunter. And, you can do all the podcasts you want. You can do all the reels you want. You are never reaching that guy.
That's right.
Ever.
So you have to I'm in the content creation business. That's what I do. I inform and I entertain people. And where's it going to be? Is it going to be on TV? Is it going to be the print magazine? Is it going to be a podcast? Is it going to be, where's it going to be? I have to go and find them.
Yeah.
And let me throw in a gratuitous plug. We just started the NRA app. So if you're an NRA member, just go to, whichever store you download apps, and you can get your magazine on there. You can get your membership card on there. There's discounts. There's all kinds of stuff, but also the content my people are producing every day flows through that. So, so maybe an app's the next thing. I don't know.
Well, you got it. Yeah. Again, it's everywhere. You have to be everywhere. It's pretty remarkable. I want to. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it is crazy. And I mean, 5 years, 10 years ago, TV was the thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And now there's so many cables that have been cut around the country. I'm glad I'm not in the cable business.
Yeah, you were just talking about that the other day.
Yeah. I mean, think about the amount of copper wire that's buried under the ground that's not being used. And boy, we'd like to get that back.
Yeah. You could turn that into jackets.
We'd like to.
Well, look at you now. I mean, Hornady has a podcast.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd have a podcast, Steve?
Not until he came here, and then actually, Hornady doesn't have a podcast. Seth has.
That's not true.
We just do what he tells us, show up when he says, and away he goes.
It's awesome.
Appreciate.
He's got a phenomenal voice for a podcast, you got to admit. So
I appreciate that too. I don't have the mustache for TV, but the voice for radio, and I appreciate that, Steve. But truth be told, and everybody knows that it is the Hornady podcast, and although I get to host it, Preston and Judd behind the cameras, man, they do the majority of the work. I just get to sit here and run my mouth, and they have to edit everything. So I want to get into some product stuff now because it parallels, your time in the media space and you guys as manufacturers. And we talked about the VMAX. I have and I apologize if I have the wrong magazine, but in my head, I believe it's your photo of the little cartridge that could.
Yeah.
The 17 HMR. That was. It was well before my time here, but you want to talk about something that absolutely blew up and took over. What was that like to get launched to the world?
best cover you ever did.
Ever.
By far.
Yeah, ever.
No, I mean, we've done a lot of covers, and
We should drop that image in for the viewers.
Oh yeah, no, and I think Mike Bassard wrote that story up, but we just couldn't believe the performance on the 17 HMR, and there was a process for you guys to get into that, and it created an opening for you. And I'm looking at this little tiny cartridge, and my art director, what to do with it. So my art director goes, and he comes back with the white cover, and then I put the tag on there. That's not what the story was called, but it said the story of the little cartridge that could, and little small type.
Yep.
And I'm very proud of that because my art director came up with it. I put the touch on it, and I think it sold a lot of cartridges.
Well, you walk down the hall at our office, and you'll see that cover on the wall. So
more is less in that regard because the individual cartridge, in the middle of a big empty white space. And if the listener or the viewer hasn't checked in on the episode about 17 HMR, Dave Emery and Steve Hornady sat down and discussed the entire 17 HMR story, which was both interesting and comical at the same time. We got to hear about how many times Dave almost got fired. And
he didn't. You guys make up stuff about how tough I am. But
it's probably embellished a little bit.
Yeah, but you did even admit a couple different times you're like, I almost fired him over that. Now, some of that's in jest, but it worked out for Dave and everybody else too.
And I'm curious, because in that podcast, Steve, you go on about your first time that you shot it. You're down in the lab, and it was like, okay, yeah, all right, I'll put it in the gun, okay. And then once you shot a group with it, you're like, okay, I get it now.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, that's not what you said. I paraphrased.
Yeah, I went, whoa, shit.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah. Which it is.
And that's what it was.
I think everybody who's shot a 17 HMR that had grown up shooting 22 mag or 22 long rifle did the same thing. Do you remember your first time getting on a rifle and going, there's no way this $160 rifle with a red field on it is going to wow me, and then to have your socks blown off?
Yeah, no. When it was small samples, not even in factory packaging yet, I think, when we got that HMR in, and Mike Bassard, who was our technical editor at the time, and he's like, "Hey, Mark, you need to come downstairs." And I forget what rifle it is. I thought it may have been a Marlin.
Marlin or a Ruger, probably.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Well, yeah, it could have been any one of them.
It had a really mediocre trigger. And I don't.
It could have been either one.
Yeah. And but I'm sitting down there and we're shooting it at 50 yards, and I keep looking through the scope, going, I mean, I thought that was a good shot, and it was down there putting them in just one hole, and I'm like, okay, I believe I'm in.
Yeah. That really was what it was. It was the first time you pulled the trigger. It was like, first of all, there's no recoil.
No.
Fast and flat, and like, oh yeah, okay, this is really going to be fun. That was the easy part. Then it was like, okay, now how do we get it into production? That's a new ball game. So.
And then once it was in production, and I didn't work here, so this is all pre-Jason. I didn't work here. I was a manufacturer's rep at the time, and it went on allocation. It was instantly allocated. And the way people were trying to work the system to try and get 17 HMR, I had friends calling me going, hey, can you call your dad and get me more 17 HMR? Hey, can you do this and get me more 17 HMR? I'm like, eh. But the best one was, and I won't say the customer right now, they're one of our favorites now, but they threw us out the year we introduced the 17 HMR, and it was a big customer. And they threw us out, and I'm like, you guys are really making a mistake. This thing's going to be big. You're going to really regret this. And about 4 months.
Typical sales guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the way I roll. But 4 months later, they called, and they're like, can we just get 20,000 boxes of that? And I said, no. Nope. You put everything else back in, and we'll see if we can get you some 17 HMR, but I'm not calling my dad for that one.
Well, I think the magazine cover truly did the product justice, and I'm sure it helped move some stuff. Now, going to the opposite end of the spectrum, you were part of a lot of product launches. Got the 17 HMR, little cartridge that could. You briefly started talking about at the beginning of the podcast. 450 Marlin.
Oh yeah,
the biggest of the big. You got to go use that in the field
with Steve.
With Steve.
That was, we did Alaska, didn't we?
We did Alaska together, and I'd never ridden in bush plains so much. I'd been up there moose hunting.
The outhouse moose.
The outhouse, yeah. So that was a great time. They put us up on top. They'd land a Super Cub up on top of a ridge line, and then I'd get to tent with Bryce Towsley as he snored and slid down the side of the mountain and tried to take me with him, and it was miserable. Then I end up in camp with poor Steve, who had some sort of really bad tooth pain.
I did. I remember
that.
I had an abscessed tooth. Oh, Jesus, it was miserable.
And there you are in the bush, remote Alaska.
Oh, yeah. You got nothing. There's nothing. I took everybody's antibiotics, and I drank almost all the whiskey.
I was going to say how much whiskey was consumed.
Yeah, I was pushing everything I could to try to get, and there were 3 of you guys on that hunt, riders that hunted.
It was Bryce Towsley
and you,
me, and Todd, Outdoor Life Todd Smith.
Okay.
And then Tom Gresham, I think, was on that too, wasn't he?
I don't remember. I just remember there were 4 riders.
Yeah.
And once one of you guys had killed the last one, Marlin was on that trip also. It was like, get me out of here. First plane, get me to Anchorage. And I remember standing in front of this gal at the United counter to get me on any plane, and literally tears were rolling down my faces. Ma'am, you've got to. And she got me on a plane and I to Denver, and I hunted for a EMT or something that could help me there, and there was nothing. And get to Grand Island, and the story continues. But the outhouse moose, and I remember.
Let's hear about the outhouse.
I was just going to say,
you'll get there. But the one thing about Bryce Towsley I do remember is they took him to a spike camp, and he had his clothes were soaking wet, and he had a whole new set of completely dry clothes. And they got into camp, and he got out of his super wet, stinking clothes and got into his brand new, dry, wonderful, warm clothes. and a moose walks out, and he has to go out in the pouring rain, and he now has 2 sets of soaking wet clothes. I don't know if he even shot that moose or even cared, but he had no choice. You crawl back into camp in soaking wet stuff, and that's all you had, But
Sounds like a rugged hunt.
Yeah, no, it
was real.
Yeah, it was real. It was very wet.
Hornady Outfitter ammunition is now loaded with Hornady CX bullets. Its optimized monolithic design combined with a heat shield tip offers extended range performance, enhanced accuracy, high weight retention, and deep penetration. Outfitter ammunition features corrosion-resistant nickel-plated cases that are sealed watertight, designed to perform under the toughest conditions. No matter where adventure takes you, trust your hunt to Outfitter ammunition from Hornady.
And the one thing that sticks out in my mind is we had a bottle of Glenlivet, and our guide, Bryce and I, at one of these spike camps, we pour him a little bit of, nice scotch, and next thing you know, he starts mixing it with Tang powder.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
And I literally
Must feel
threw
like
up.
an astronaut.
I threw up in my mouth then and now.
Yeah, I've got a friend who makes Woodford Diet with Diet Coke.
Oh,
In the world of sins, yep, that's right up there, especially the Tang powder.
That sounds incredible.
Now let's get back to this outhouse moose.
so they finally realized that having Bryce slide down the mountain and crush me in my sleep, and I almost shot him once. The 2 of us up there were doing no good, so they flew us back, and so I got down there and a nice night in the tent, and somebody had gone to the outhouse. We're down on a gravel bar in the bottom, and I'd been going up and down mountains and crossing streams, and so I'm sitting there. I've got coffee. I'm still wearing like just jeans and something and camp clothes, and somebody comes back from the outhouse and says, "Mark, grab your gun. There's a moose behind the outhouse." Of course, I said, "No shit."
What else do you say?
Yeah. And so we go, and he was kind of on in the alder down by that gravel bar, and we're looking at him, and I'm talking to the guide, and we've got his head, and it's an offhand shot of, I don't know, about 60, 70 yards. And I don't want to try and shoot him in the head because, I'm going to want those antlers. And so I'm like, which way is he facing? Because we couldn't tell, it was so thick. And he's like, oh, he's facing us this way. His body's on the right. Okay. Pow. Yeah, body wasn't on the right. It was on the left. That thing comes running at us. And I'm like Chuck Connors, right? And I'm just, this thing's running. I mean, it's like stampeding at us. And I'm just going, pow, pow, pow. And it veers left. Then all of a sudden, it stops and does the funky chicken and falls down right there. So, yeah, that was a little
That
exciting.
got intense.
Yeah, it did. So I would have shot him in the face if he was coming right at me, but I could see he was veering. So good performance, a couple of pass-throughs on him, and that moose hangs in my family room.
And the neat thing about it is it was only about 10 yards from camp at that point in time, so they could skin it, feed it, or cut it, and have it ready to go.
Best pack ever.
Have you ever had a packer hand you a bottle of whiskey and say thank you?
Well, did you mix it with Tang?
No.
That would do it.
No, different guys. But yeah, so you think about this Hornady cartridge introduction frenzy, and it was just a frenzy there for a while. Because you had that, and then of course you had the 308 Marlin Express, you had the 30 TC, you had the Ruger Compact Magnums.
RCMs, yeah.
Yeah, the Ruger Compact Magnums. We had a talk about them in WSMs years ago, Steve, and so that idea of partnering with gun companies was really great because of everything that the Hornady team learned. From each of those cartridge introductions. You pick up a piece that later on you would build into something else. So now
The Bushmaster's in there.
the 450 Bushmaster. Yep. Oh, yeah.
338 Marlin.
338 Marlin. 450 Bushmaster. Went on a South Carolina pig hunt. Dick Metcalf was on that.
I think I was on
You
that
were
one.
on that?
Yeah.
Richard Vanola, God rest his soul,
Yeah.
was on that. And blew up pigs real good. I mean,
Yeah.
You don't say.
well, and then we shot it at the range afterwards because we nailed our pigs. And, I shot, 100 rounds of 450 Bushmaster, and we're playing with it and this and that. And that night I'm just like, I'm not sure that was smart.
Yeah. Well, and we struggled with those guns feeding those cartridges.
Magazine follow-up.
Yep, there were just too much variation in some of what we were trying to do there, and the guns weren't consistently reliable. Mags were part of the problem. They didn't want to always feed, but they get through it. So the reality is once you had the product out there, the gun guys start to go to work on some of the. And truthfully, the guns that we had on that probably weren't factory originals at that point. They would have been
probably not
pre-production guns that we'd built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's often the problem is, when do you bring the gun manufacturer in? And, sometimes these guys will have it dialed in and the gun manufacturer won't yet. And the problem is that's the experience that the writer's going to have to write about.
Yeah,
sure.
And now you got to be so careful because you have all these content creators that are putting videos up that day. They're doing, Facebook Live, So if something goes wrong, you look really bad.
Yeah,
so you've got to
there's
make
no
sure
buffer time.
You got to make sure it's perfect when it goes out.
But it certainly was a frenzy, like you said, Mark. And Dave Emery said this morning, and he credits a lot of the success of some of those products, like Lever Evolution and stuff like that, to you, Steve, just letting an out-of-the-box thinker and tinkerer just think out of the box and tinker a little bit. Obviously, keep him on task for production stuff, but he credits all of that success to just the ownership letting the people who were designing this stuff just go design it, go play with it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, but it's obviously worked. Jason, when you came to Hornady Manufacturing, which sounds weird, we've talked about it in various podcasts, and there's been magazine articles written about it and everything else. You, as a Hornady, did not work at Hornady until 2006.
Right.
When you came to Hornady, one of your goals was an FBI contract.
Yep. Well, and I told the story earlier. I mean, when I started, and I don't remember if it was the first day or when we were negotiating me coming back here, and he gave me a list of things that were, I want you to fix the wholesale program, and I want you to work on Scandinavia because we've never done well in Scandinavia, and South Africa's kind of messed up. You need to fix that, and kind of went through this list of things he wants me to do, and okay. And I was getting up to leave the office, and he goes, "Oh, and I want you to get an FBI contract," and it was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, just toss that in there. It's pretty standard.
And the FBI contract, I mean, it's like nobody gets. Only people who get FBI contracts are people who have FBI contracts, and that is when, we're going to get an FBI contract if it kills me.
Yeah,
and that's when we started.
And luckily, it didn't. We were visiting with Dave Emery earlier today, and what I didn't quite understand. So we'll talk about our critical duty bullets and our critical defense bullets. What I didn't understand is how short the timeline was from critical duty to the first jacketed hollow point for a pistol. Jacketed hollow points were really not a thing until we are estimating late 60s, early 70s for their first commercial availability.
Superville.
And then
okay, yep.
Hornady didn't get into the XTP game until the 80s. And it just blew my mind a little bit. I would have thought that would have been kind of a natural progression a lot sooner than that.
Well, Superval brought out the first jacketed, truly full jacketed, not FMJ, but I mean jacketed hollow point type pistol bullets. And I can remember my dad, well, first of all, he didn't think much of Lee Juris, who was, and he's dead. They're both dead, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, you're not stirring anything up here.
Right.
Now it's Cameron Hopkins, by the way.
It is?
Superville.
Really?
Lee Juris.
No, Cameron Hopkins owns it now.
Oh, owns it now.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Lee Juris was the guy who created it and made and then Spear brought him out before we did. Before that, we had the half jackets, but pistol bullets weren't part of our business, really.
Right.
Then we made the first ones, and they were just jacketed hollow points. There was nothing fancy about them. And there were always, a tremendous amount of lead exposed above the jacket and stuff. So it wasn't really until a lot later that we started bringing the jacket up further and controlling that thing. And I was
skiving the jacket.
Yeah, and I was talking with Mark earlier about this very subject. And what I was laughing at a minute ago is, I'll stop rewriting your childhood if you'll stop misremembering your history.
I think we can start talking about that if you want.
So we did those things, but there's a different way of thinking about how we got to that point. And I was telling him that I think the first one was the RTX or XTR or something. I just can't quite remember what that was before we did the XDP, but it was that evolution in there that made that. XDPs were really, and still are,
That's
an excellent hollow point.
They really are.
Well, and a lot of that stemmed from the whole FBI incident because I was working here right after high school.
Hollywood.
Hollywood or Florida? Miami.
Wasn't it Hollywood when the shooting took place?
So there were two really bad law enforcement.
Miami was the other one.
Miami was in 1986, where a 9mm bullet was on the right track, but didn't have the penetration to get there. There were a lot of mistakes, right? But sadly, the federal agents died. And then the Hollywood shootout, they had police officers against really horrible bad guys wearing body armor, and their pistol rounds weren't penetrating. That's where you ended up with law enforcement moving to having carbines.
My summer job that summer was shooting. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know I was shooting the FBI protocol. I just know that my supervisor told me, shoot those into wax, shoot those into water, and shoot these. And I sat there and loaded bullet after bullet after bullet and shot it in wax. And wax, if you haven't messed with, is really dirty. And water was really wet. And that's what I did all summer.
Well, it culminated to what we know now as the critical defense and the critical duty bullet, which has the FBI contract. I jokingly was talking to Dave about it's like the squeeze cheese container, but with like RTV sealant. Just like what made him think about putting that stuff in there? Silicone caulking, basically. When he brought that idea to you, Steve, were you like, get out, or
no?
Did he bring you, hey, here's some expanded bullets. This is really going to work?
No, because he came in with the principle.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the issue? Hollow points clog. If I did this, they don't clog. I can prevent it. Yep, makes sense.
Yep,
prove it.
Sure.
Because you've pre-clogged it, but you've pre-clogged it with a controlled material, so that you are now in control with what it does, and hence the quote-unquote barrier blind line that we use, because you have controlled what it's actually doing. So that was, I from the get-go, I thought, this is going to work. This is a good idea.
It took him a minute to get there, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Luckily, during that time, he was working on Lever Evolution and the FTX bullet, and learned about some new materials, and that material really lent itself perfectly to the critical defense bullet, which was, as the name implies, purposely built for defense. Yeah. And then we got the critical duty bullet, which, in my opinion, and I've said this before, that is the most technically advanced bullet that we could possibly manufacture that has a lead core and a copper jacket. There are so many individual technologies in there that all have to work together to get the performance through the FBI barriers. And if you tried to add one more, I don't think we could. It would be tough. But Jason, you got your wish.
Well, we did, and it was a fun journey. It was stressful, and the first time we submitted, and we talked about this earlier, we weren't going to submit. We just did it as a practice, and we had a consultant out of Kearney, and we decided we were going to make all the dates. We were going to pretend like we were doing it. We were going to wrap the pallet and do everything. And the guy came in to look at all our stuff, and he said, "Did everything right? Why don't you just submit it?" Well, I guess
you're
all we have
right.
to do is ship it, and we shipped it, and we didn't win that one, but we met all the FBI guys, and we went into the debrief, and a guy named Scott Patterson, who used to run the BRF at FBI, looked at us and said, "We've been waiting for you guys to submit," and that was when it was like, maybe we can do this, and we didn't win that one. We failed. We figured out why we failed, and we won the next two.
Yeah, I was part of the first one, and Dave Emery had retired, and Jaden Quinlan everything was critical duty. When I moved into the ballistics world, it was, there is no failure. We will nail all of this, and it will win. And to be on the tail end of that and see everything that went into it, and to be part of that, the testing that we were doing as it came through production, and then we shipped it. And when we heard back that not only did we win, but we scored the highest that the FBI has ever tested in any ammo. That felt pretty damn good.
Well, and on that first one, when we didn't win, he said, hey, we know you lost, and you lost because of this one thing that we misinterpreted, but you had the most accurate pistol ammo we've ever shot in the building. Like, whoa, all right, let's get out of here and congratulate ourselves, not in front of these guys. But it was, and then, started checking boxes, and here we sit. So,
did you, I'm guessing, privy to the critical duty line of ammo, during that initial launch 15 years ago? What was it? Was it substantial to you then? Was there a big draw for it on the commercial side?
Yeah, so I knew the guys at the ballistic lab, and friends, Bill Vanderpool even still. So we're probably going to pull Bill in. But once we started seeing the results, we knew. And I don't think it was a cover story, but it was certainly a feature story. And our problem is I don't want to say editors are lazy, but I've got nobody that really is excited to go downstairs and mix up ballistic gelatin. So we couldn't really replicate the testing, but we reported on it as best we could. But yeah, that was a pretty big milestone for this company.
I think it was. And to be truthful with you, it's one of the cooler projects that I ever got to have a hand in, just in the production of it. One, because you know what you're making, and you know where it's destined, you know what it's for. And then, over the years of doing that, you get to meet certain people who carry that ammo, or who carried that ammo and were involved in some unfortunate events and came home, and they went home that night. And that, to me, is so rewarding when you get to have a part in that. And most of what we do, as the Hornadys say, is fun. We sell fun. And in that line of ammo and that line of work, it's a different story. And but it still feels really, really satisfying.
Yep, that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm not going to be doom and gloom. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, because what we do sell is fun.
SnapSafe modular assembly system locks the thick steel exterior together in minutes anywhere in the home. Featuring a pry-resistant 3/16" solid steel door, 8 1-inch chrome steel live locking bolts, digital or mechanical locking options, 9-gauge steel exterior walls, 2300-degree Fahrenheit 1-hour fire shield protection, fully adjustable shelving, and a lifetime warranty. SnapSafe, a modular safe with welded safe security.
Mark, you shared something with me via text message that has nothing to do with anything, but I still think it's a really interesting part of, again, your 40-year relationship with the Hornady family. And I don't know when this took place, but your secretary called and said, hey, you got Mr. Hornady on the line.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. When the Hornady calls you.
So the way my office used to be at American Rifleman, I'd have to walk past my assistant, and if I'd been doing something or whatever, and she said, I have Mr. Hornady on the line. And I'm like, which one? The grumpy one or the big one? And she actually asked if it was the grumpy one or the big one, and I think it was the big one. And I don't know. And so you can discern which one was which in my mind at the time.
Oh, boy. I would have thought it all would have been fallen into one location.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, both grumpy and large. But no, it's great to be in a position where I know the Hornady family. And,
well, that's what I was kind of going with. That was, it had to feel really neat at some level when you look back on your career specifically, that you have the relationships with, obviously Steve and Jason Hornady, but other people around the industry where they're calling you. And it really shows the relationship between media and the manufacturer.
Yeah, there's a conversation that Steve and I had years ago, and I don't know if this is appropriate for a family podcast or not, but we were sitting there, I think, at a bar, and Steve got introspective for a second, and he said, we have a very complicated relationship. And I'm like, yeah. He said, well, I'm on your board. I'm like, yes, sir. And I advertise in your magazine. Yes, sir. But I need you to write positive things about my product when they deserve it. And I said, absolutely. And he goes, we kind of have each other by the right. And he said, the trick is nobody squeeze. And
Life advice, Steve.
It was very good advice, and the thing about working with Hornady is I know nobody here is going to squeeze. You know, if you guys really need help on something, you'll let us know. If there's a product that's not doing as well as they anticipated, it's like, hey, can I get some help on this? But it's got to make editorial sense.
Sure.
So just never going to be. I've been asked very unreasonable things by very unreasonable people. And that's just not how we work. I mean, we're not in the ivory tower anymore, but I'm accountable to my readership. I'm accountable to my bosses.
NRA as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't sell the consumer something that doesn't work.
No.
He doesn't like that, and he won't respect you for very long if you do.
You can fool some of the people some of the time,
Yep.
but you can't fool all the people all the time.
Yep.
No, and it's about respect. It's about trust. The readers have to be able to trust and respect what I have to say. And our relationship has to be such that, if there's something that you need, you let me know, and I'll let you know what the reasonable circumstance is. Or if you guys hit me with something that new product, I'll be like, that's pretty cool, so.
Well, we won't give it to you if we don't think it's pretty cool.
Right. Why bother making it?
Exactly.
I'll promise you this: we'll never try to serve you Scotch and Tang. You got that from me. You got my word.
We'll back you up on that.
We're bourbon people anyway.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and everybody knows you don't mix bourbon with Tang.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah. All right. I've got two more things. We're talking about the relationship with the media as a whole, but more specifically to you, Mark. We just celebrated 75 years. We had a party at SHOT Show with Ruger, and you were the MC, and it was a natural fit. I think everybody knew when we were, the marketing team was kind of planning this out, like we need an MC. Like, well, it's got to be Mark Keefe.
Yeah. That's exactly right. We sat around and we talked about it, and Mark was at the top of the list, and he's funny. I'm not going to suck up to you. This is not sucking up. This is talking.
We didn't have to pay him.
We didn't have to pay him. Actually, we gave him some free shit.
Yeah, I know.
But
he would have done it for free.
He would have done it for free. But the other thing, too, is the knowledge the guy has drives me crazy. His vocabulary drives me crazy. Sometimes he throws some stuff at me because I know he's going, he doesn't know what I'm talking about.
You're over here Googling
a word that he's never heard.
Never heard. And his knowledge on firearms and the history of them, and you could just sit there and listen to his stories.
Yep.
And and you did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, so I got to pick on my friends, right? Both at Hornady and from the Ruger family. I think a couple of the Ruger guys were like, they weren't sure whether they should laugh or not, right? Because I just picked on their boss. It wasn't a roast or anything, but that said, really just one of the great honors of my career that the folks at Ruger and Hornady thought that much of me. And I must say, I asked for a Ruger number 1 as, a presentation gun for doing it. And it's in 275 Rigby.
Oh, yeah.
And it has a serial number that goes back to a conversation I had with Mike Pfeiffer about a gun that he showed me that I looked at it and I said, ick. So the serial number is IC004 because I'm Mark IV. But then a man here in this shop did the most lovely engraving job on that gun. And so I can't recall his name off the top of my head.
Jordan. Jordan.
Yeah. And the rifle is beautiful. And they also gave me a certificate for free ammo for life, which I have not redeemed. So
we're not very worried about it. You'll never see the ammo anyways.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to say that in front of Dad.
Yeah, so it's
slow shipping. I don't know what's going on.
He's never going to shoot the gun.
Yeah. That said, I have a scope, I have rings, and I am going to shoot that gun, but I have plenty of 7x57. So if I run out of 7x57, you'll hear from me.
Okay.
We do actually produce 275 Rigby.
Oh,
we
yeah.
sell
stamp and everything.
We sell 6 boxes a decade.
Well, we did that for one of our European accounts, and because for some people taking those guns into some countries, if the label on the gun didn't match the label on the ammunition, then they wouldn't let you cross the line, and so you had to be real careful about that.
Well, in some countries, 7mm was military chambering, and it's restricted, but your average customs inspector has no idea that 275 Rigby and 7mm Mauser are the same.
Not at all.
100%.
I've got one last question for you guys before we wrap this thing up. This one back to product questions, and the media helps all of these manufacturers just get information out about their new products. And I'm curious around the table if you guys have a product that launched that maybe didn't get the accolades you thought it deserved. Is there a product that you would have liked to see do better, but the market just wasn't ready, the timing wasn't right, whatever it was? There's some products in the lineup that we've released that you guys have, personal love for, but it just never really caught on.
Well, mine is probably the RCMs. Part of the problem there is the name, because there are other manufacturers who don't want to put the name Ruger on their gun.
Understandable.
Matter of fact, if you go back and look at Ruger's firearms, old man Ruger didn't want to put 45 Colt on his, so it doesn't say 45 Colt, it just says 45. He says 9mm, never said 9x19 or 9mm Luger or any of those. He didn't want anything. I've got a rifle in there that says 308, not 308 Winchester, just 308. And that was the way it was going to be. So the RCMs just didn't take off, and I'll lay some of the blame to a couple of the guys at the Ruger marketing department who were convinced that their idea of how those guns should be sold was the right way, and it wasn't. This was purely a mountain hunter's rifle designed to be carried on your back, climb the mountain, go wherever you wanted to. And the 338, and I took the 338 and killed a polar bear with it.
Yeah,
too.
you've been around the world with those.
So, but they wanted them with iron sights and everything else, and it was just a death knell. So,
and you still hunt with them.
Still do.
They're still capable.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they're great.
We'll figure out a new way of bringing that.
Yeah. Jason, what about you? You got any products that never really stuck that you love to shoot?
There's a host of accessories and things that we never quite could get to the customer the way we wanted. When it comes to cartridges, I'm really sad about the 308 Marlin and the 338 Marlin, and kind of along the RCMs. We probably over cartridged a little bit in the zeros. I mean, we hammered a lot. We had a lot, and we had a lot to talk about. And then Marlin sold, and when Marlin sold, the soul of the company went with it, and it was gone forever. And they lost the guy who knew where to tap the wrench to make the gun so that it ran. And Remington then imploded, and it went away. Now, our friends at Ruger are doing a great job bringing it back, but they're still trying to catch up with all the pent-up demand from
45, 70s.
Yeah. And so, in fairness to them, and I think they're probably tired of me begging for them to bring back the 308 Marlin and the 338 Marlin.
Great cartridge.
But they're fantastic cartridges, and, one of my most exciting...
And their namesake.
And one of my most exciting trips coming back from Africa, I was checking my gun back in with the customs guys, and the guy next to me pulls out an XLR, a Marlin XLR, and I go, hey, you've been to Africa with that? He goes, yeah, 338 Marlin, it's the best African gun ever. Yes!
Win.
Yeah, I was like, okay, people do have it. And so that one makes me sad.
Yeah.
The other one that's kind of funny is we talked a little bit about 30TC, and the 30TC never did well. It sold to Thompson. Thompson Center sold to Smith & Wesson, not picking on the Smith & Wesson folks, but Thompson Center lost its soul too, and so it went away. But you know what? It was the father of, or uncle, or I'm not sure where you want to call it.
Uncle, grandpa.
Of the 6.5 Creedmoor, which took about 10 years to get popular there, but that one kind of fell into a no man's land too. But the 6.5 Creedmoor, pretty happy with that one.
Mark, what about you? You've seen everything come through, on the editorial side. Anything from Hornady that you really enjoyed and you thought maybe you should take off?
I thought I got to discuss an NRA failure, so this is much easier.
We don't have that much time.
No. So really the cartridge that I really wish had done better would be the H2. The little tiny
17 Mach 2.
17
Mach 2.
Yep. Because Kimber made at least one 1911 platform, blowback obviously, for that thing, and Dwight Van Brunt and I and some other guys I think it was Dwight. Anyway, we would keep it cocked and locked on the dashboard. And if there were a prairie dog close enough,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
out on the prairie. Oh,
yeah.
The
So-
Wyoming drive-by.
But I recall taking that gun, stepping out of the vehicle, and doing a total Sergeant York at these like 8 prairie dogs with a reload, and it was really, really fun. It was really
It
fun.
was back to selling fun.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Thompson Center had one in their little automatic rifle.
Oh, yeah.
That thing was great. Oh, it was fun.
But it was tough to get that cartridge to work in semi-auto.
That was the problem. It just did not transfer to. It didn't work in the 1022.
Yeah.
And that's really what made the difference. If it would have worked in the 1022, as Ruger made it, without having to do a whole bunch of special stuff, it would have taken off. And Marlin made a semi-auto, but the family that owned it didn't really want to invest in the money to get going with it, and so they brought it out, but they let it die.
I still have a couple boxes though.
Yeah. But still,
yeah.
it's still fun.
We still make it and
No,
sell
I
it.
know. Yeah,
So-
yeah. So for guys who like bolt guns, especially if it's trying to keep noise down and you don't need that much energy, it shot well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It did. Did Magnum Research have one? Or was that just in the 17 HMR?
Alexander. That's probably just
Alexander Arms had the
Alex-
HMR.
They had the
Yeah.
HMR, but
Yep.
Thompson Center had that little one, and it was great. But
What's his toes over in Iowa?
oh yeah, Volkortson.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I was
Yep.
thinking of.
Yep.
He's got one, and it works well, and they're beautiful.
They're pricey.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
need a 1022 price gun.
Well, I think the 30 TC, like you mentioned, Jace, if I had to pick one, I think if a guy could reintroduce that somehow as the 30 Creedmoor, it'd probably take off. Everybody'd be so happy. Have no idea that it was, formerly the 30 TC.
Well, you're going to have to edit that out since that's part of the marketing plans.
Oh, boy. Well,
Way to go, Seth.
I don't have anything else for you guys. We're coming up on an hour here. Is there anything else that you want to let the listener know, let Mark know, let each other know about the relationship between, the media and us as manufacturers?
I would tell you that it's always fun to call Mark because you're going to get entertained, you're going to get a story, and you're going to get a history lesson all in one conversation.
Big words, too.
And it's fantastic.
And you're comfortable.
Mark, anything else to leave the
Yeah,
listener
no,
with?
I got to tell you that I get to go on the road a lot to trade shows, to film, hunt. Always love visiting here in Grand Island, but also just hanging out with these guys. I've kind of grown up with Jason through this journey, and I'm glad the Hornadys have been here by my side.
Excellent. Both the big one and the grumpy one.
I'm afraid so.
Awesome, guys. Well, with that, I've got
I don't
nothing
know why
more
they
for
keep
you.
calling you grumpy.
I don't either. I'll fall on my sword.
Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Seth.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to this episode where we kind of walk through the juxtaposition of the media and us as manufacturers. Mark's had a great career. He's sat side by side with Hornady throughout his 40 years in the industry. We got some great insight. We appreciate you listening. We'll catch you on the next one.